Awesome. I tried to get a Bloody Mary before it started, but the bar wasn't open yet. I thought, in LA you can get Bloody Marys like at 8 o'clock, but here it's like 12:30.
Yeah, we're lucky we can get them on Sunday now.
I know.
They've probably changed a little bit. So anyway, folks, this is Lynn Lowry.
Yay!
And just in case you didn't know the background on Anthony's crazy titling for these panels, I Drink Your Blood for Today was one of Lynn's very first movies. And this is one, I still, I don't know how long it's been since I've seen this movie, but it always amazed me because I'd already been a fan of yours after I came across I Drink Your Blood, and you had a chance to cross paths with Lloyd Kaufman.
Right.
So tell me a little bit about that experience, because I mean the whole trauma. I mean, it wasn't trauma at the time, but it was right on the crest of that happening.
Right. Well, Lloyd was the first person that I worked with in New York. I was in New York, and I was auditioning for John Avildsen's Canon Joe, and he was Avildsen's production assistant or something like that. So I was waiting out in the interview room, waiting to be called in to audition, and Lloyd came in and saw me, and he ran over, and he said, "Oh my God, I'm doing this short film called The Battle of Love's Return, and we just lost our dream girl, and you would be just perfect for it, and but we have no money, and we won't feed you, but we'd love to have you do it. Will you do it?" Well, I had never done any film before, and so I thought, well, yeah, okay. I mean, it'd be good to have the experience and everything. So I did this short with Lloyd that he starred in, wrote, directed, produced, edited, did everything.
Pretty much like he does now.
Yeah, pretty much. And he kind of plays like a, gosh, I don't know how to explain it exactly, like a really bad Charlie Chaplin, clumsy, except it really isn't good. I mean, I love Lloyd, but, and Lloyd doesn't even promote this film anymore, because I don't think even he doesn't want anyone to see it, so you can imagine if he doesn't want you to see it, that it must be pretty bad. And so after I worked with him, and then I Drink Your Blood, then Lloyd came back to me and said, we've decided to make The Battle of Love's Return a feature film. And I'm thinking, oh no. But so he did, and so it became my second feature, although my first actual short. But he's great, he's a real gentleman, and he acts crazy and all that, but that's just that persona that he puts out there for you. But he's really not like that. He's really extremely intelligent and went to Yale. Actually, I had a date. He had a big crush on me, which I didn't know actually that he did until I read his book 25 years later, and I saw this. I'm thinking, why he should have told me. But I went with him. We had a date. One day we went to Trish and Nixon's house for dinner, because he went to school to Yale with her husband. So that's how much into politics, and his wife is very Patty's very into all that. But that's my Lloyd story.
That's your nice. So now I'm going to go back a little further, because we started at your first film, and one thing I don't think we've ever talked about this either is when you were growing up, was it sort of on your radar that you wanted to get into this business, or did you want to be an actress? I know you started.
Yes. I was an entertainer. My dad was learned to be over many years quite a good trumpet player, and a very good entertainer and singer. So that was part of my growing up, was seeing him do these things. But I grew up in a very rural area. Actually, Cahokia, Illinois was where I was born and raised. No culture, no one knew who Shakespeare was. I mean, it was really, not very inspiring to be brought up there. But for some reason, I always had this this desire to entertain, you know, and even if it meant, you know, riding my bicycle off the end of the porch, you know, for the kids in the neighborhood, you know, to see, just to get that attention. I think that's, you know, why I wanted to, you know, to be an actress. Was like, I was very shy, and I wanted to get some kind of attention, so I would, you know, go to great lengths to do that. The first play I ever did, I played a sheep in the church, you know, Christmas play.
Did you have speaking lines?
No. Bah. I had more lines in that than I did in I Drink Your Blood.
That's true.
And then after that, I was, you know, did grade school stuff and skits and high school and drama club, and, you know, won an award to do a special program in drama, and got a scholarship to college in speech and drama, and I just always had this. I always knew how to do Tennessee Williams' neurotic, crazy, schizophrenic people, even when I was 16. And I don't know how I knew how to do it, but I just did. And I mean, I got a scholarship because of the monologue that I did from this Tennessee Williams play. So I just always had it in me and pursued it.
And where was the scholarship to?
University of Georgia.
Yeah, I was going to say, you haven't mentioned that right here.
Athens, Georgia. Yeah. So that was great.
Now from there, I know, like, it takes a while to get going.
Yes.
But is that when you headed to New York? Right after? Or
you know, I only went to college for 2 years. The summer of my first year, I did my first summer stock in Indiana, and I worked with John Belushi. He was in the company, and you know, crazy. He was. I think I was 17 and he was 16, and he was already smoking, you know, grass and just odd. But I did like 2 plays with him there, and I learned, you know, about summer stock where you have to clean the toilets and build the sets and do, you know, 5 plays at one time, and so it was a great experience. And then shortly after that, I actually got pregnant, and so I kind of dropped out for about a year until I had the baby, and then at that point, and I worked at the Playboy Club in Atlanta, and I was the skinniest bunny you've ever seen. I actually had people come into the club, and I was Bunny Mia, because the bunny mother thought I looked like Mia Farrow. So I can't tell you how many people would say, "How's Frank?" How it was like. People would come in and they would get me as their bunny, and they would go and they would request another bunny. Because, you know, they wanted a bunny that had, you know, tits. So they would put me in the back room where I would play bumper pool with the customers, because when you bend over the table, you look bigger. So I've got very good at bumper pool. So then I went to New York.
Right. I was hoping you'd bring up the bunnies thing, because I think that's a hilarious story.
Yes, you had to brush your tail. I was just the worst bunny. I was like, I never brushed my tail.
Did you have to do the bunny dip?
Oh, the bunny dip was a bitch.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, you're supposed to carry these big trays with every drink, you know, on it. You know, I would go up to the table with the tray, and I would squat on my haunches, and I put the tray on my lap, and I put drinks up on the table like that, because I just couldn't do it. I just didn't have the strength to hold that up and do that dip.
Yeah.
It's just so stupid. I hated being a bunny.
So now we're in New York.
And
you did some modeling first, right?
I modeled. I never quite made it as a model. I mean, I did a lot of modeling, but, you know, and it's the same today, but, you know, when you're 20, 21 years old, every photographer comes on to you. You know, they all want to shoot you to help you build up your portfolio, and then they want to do like art pictures. And then they start, you know, with blowing your hair, and then they try to get you to take your top off, and then, you know, and because they're hoping that by the end of the shoot, you know, you'll, like, you know, succumb. So I never, you know, I just wasn't interested in that. So, but I did that for a while, and then I got an audition for I Drink Your Blood.
Right.
Through a newspaper backstage, and so I went on this audition, and David Durston was packing everything up for the day. I mean, he was, you know, he was done. He had cast it, and I was like, I got there too late. But David was, you know, he saw me, and he just fell in love with me, and he just, you know, he said, "Oh my God, you're just so gorgeous, and you must be in my movie, you must." And he's very flamboyant, David, and you know, and so he said, "I'm going to write you a part, and I'll call you in 2 days, and we're gonna set it all up." And I thought, oh, this is never gonna happen, you know. I mean, I'd already heard this so many times, and you know, or they'll say all that, and then they would say, "So take your clothes off and let me see what you look like, and then we'll, you know, do a contract." So, but David did call me in like 2 days, and he said, "You know, you're going to play a mute, you know, a mute in the movie, so I don't have to write any lines for you. And we're gonna." He didn't say this to me, but later he told me. "And then we're gonna sneak you by the producer Jerry Gross, and hope that when he sees you on camera, he'll be happy with it and pay you." Because David was worried that he was going to cast this extra character, and that Jerry Gross would not be happy and would not want to, you know, pay me. So, so he cast me, and the first time Jerry Gross saw the dailies, you know, he said, "Who's that girl?" You know, and David, like, you know, said, "Oh, well, she's the mute," you know. And so Jerry said, "Write her another scene." And that's how the famous cutting the hand off scene was written. It was never in the script. And that's why a lot of people always ask me why I never got any credit for the film, because I'm uncredited in the film. And it's because I wasn't in the script, and I had no character that was ever written. And the people that did the credits, they didn't, you know. So I'm not, you know, in the credits.
Did he decide to pay you?
Yes.
Good.
I was going to say, the check cleared, so that's
He did, yes. Not very much, but I did get paid.
Yeah, and I'm amazed because the stories you've told me in the past, it's not the first time that a scene has been written for you that wasn't in the script. And I think my favorite one was from Shivers, when you worked with David Cronenberg.
Right.
And I think probably the best scene in the whole movie.
I know.
Was to tell folks about that. I think a lot of the fans of that don't realize how that came out.
The swimming pool scene, you know, where I come up out of the pool. I don't know if you've all seen Shivers, but I come up out of the pool and turn. It's like sort of slow motion, and I start coming towards him, you know, and I was not in that scene. And I did my work, and they wrapped me, and they sent me back to New York. It was shot in Montreal, so they sent me back to New York. And then somebody, you know, said, "Oh, you know, maybe we should have Nurse Forsythe give Paul Hampton the parasite." Like, you know, you would think that maybe somebody would have thought of this earlier. But, so they flew me back, and I did that whole, you know, end scene, you know, with Barbara Steele in the pool, and you know, so it was great. And at that moment, of all the movies I've been in, that's my favorite moment, when I come up out of that pool. It's just so creepy but sexy, but innocent, but wicked, but crazy. There's just so many things, you know. It's like you can't even pinpoint what it is, and it just somehow works so well, you know, for the film.
And it's a great kicker because, I mean, literally it's the last scene in the film.
And the very last scene. And I
got
to get
Did you guys
Paul
live
parasite.
in that apartment building where you were shooting? Or?
Yes, we did.
So you were living almost on set, basically.
Yeah, and every now and then we would run into other people who actually lived there. Like I ran into the day that I had the parasite in my mouth, you know, that I had to push out with my tongue because this parasite really never worked. And so I had blood capsule. I had to bite and then push it out with my tongue, so I had blood like all over my face. And I went into the ladies' room, and these two little ladies that lived in the building came in to use the bathroom, and I'm standing in there, with blood all over my face. They were like, they just were like in shock. And I had to say, no, I'm doing a movie. We're shooting a movie, and it's fine. I'm good. So they were like, so.
Did it feel as claustrophobic doing that movie as the movie felt? Because I mean, he really did a nice job of making the audience feel so claustrophobic.
Not really. He was a pretty big complex, and I mean, huge swimming pool, and so I don't really think we felt that way. I mean, I've actually never even heard that term before in relation to that film, but now that you say it, I can see how it does make you feel that way.
The first time I saw that film, it never left me.
It was a huge building, and there were tons of apartments.
And for those of you that aren't familiar with the movie, and you need to go see it, I mean, it's Shivers. It's a great movie. It was sort of a radical concept.
Yes.
The whole thing. This was like a self-contained apartment complex. Everything was there that you needed. Your shopping centers, everything. You never had to literally leave this building to get anything you needed. And this was 1974 or so. And that kind of thing just wasn't done. So
no one had ever done body horror before,
Yeah.
where something's in your body that's going to come out of you. And so that was the first film.
In fact, the original title, I think, was They Came From Within.
Yes, They Came From Within. So it's very good. And it holds up. I mean, I saw it on Showtime about a year ago, and I was just amazed at how well it still holds up, after all that time.
Still looks good.
It was his first film, too, Cronenberg.
Now, you told a funny story about Paul Hampton, and the reason I personally found it funny was because it mirrored exactly what I thought when I first saw this movie. And Paul Hampton, the lead, your leading man, tell us a little bit about that, because a lot of folks didn't like him when they first saw that movie.
Well, I sort of thought maybe I was the only one, so I never mentioned it. I thought he was so boring. Not just in the movie, but just as a person. I mean, we had no chemistry at all. He was supposed to, I thought, be my boyfriend in the movie, and he just was, so disinterested. And I mean, I even had. I have the scene where I take my clothes off, and so I'm supposed to undress. I'm doing it supposedly right in front of Paul, but for some reason, I guess David wanted to do that. So David sat in for Paul that day. So I'm actually taking my clothes off for David Cronenberg. And so then when Paul had to do his close-ups of, me doing it, but I wasn't there, again, he's just so bored. He's on the phone, and, he could be just looking like at a donkey and would have no expression whatsoever. But I do think that now, after many years, that it does work.
It does.
Because there's so much going on around him, and it's so crazy, and at that time, no one had ever really done a movie like that. Mm-hmm. And so, his response is just kind of like, he's like catatonic and sort of in shock, and he comes across just kind of real low-key. And somehow it works.
It really does. I think it added to the intensity of the film. And again, this was Cronenberg's very first film, the very first major film that he released. So, and if I'm not mistaken, I think Cronenberg came out of that Roger Corman group. I think he was one of the guys with Scorsese and some of those guys. Yeah. There's so many big directors that came out of there. It was an amazing film. I remember seeing it in college.
Yeah.
Like you said, it was nothing like that. No. So now you have the opportunity. You work with Lloyd Kaufman. The Shivers, I jumped up a little bit. You'd done the Crazies, I think, just before that.
Right. I think I did Sugar Cookies after.
And you did Sugar Cookies after.
Before the Crazies.
Yeah, I believe so.
And then the Crazies, and then I did Score after the Crazies.
So you're working with some major directors here.
Yes.
I mean, just boom, 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 boom. Right. And of course, you told some funny stories about Sugar Cookies yesterday that I got a kick out of. I mean, it was like years before I saw that film. Mm-hmm. It was like 10 years ago that I saw it for the first time. But really, it was sort of But Sugar Cookies and Score was sort of like what I consider a European type
Yeah, well, I always
offshoot,
refer
because
to
they
them-
both seemed very European to me. I mean,
Well, Score was shot in Yugoslavia.
Right, it was in
So
Yugoslavia.
it did have that feel, much more so than Sugar Cookies,
Mm-hmm.
which was shot in New York. But I think Score is by far a superior,
I think so.
film script wise. And when I was hired to do Score, I don't know if any of you have seen Score.
So Radley, that's good.
The Radley Metzger film.
Yes. It was not supposed to be, it was on Broadway, off Broadway. It was a sex comedy off Broadway. And Sylvester Stallone played the telephone man in the off Broadway production. But Radley didn't cast him in the movie because he didn't think he was handsome enough.
Wow.
So I know. Can you imagine if he had cast him?
Oops.
But I was told that all the sex would be simulated. There would be nothing. So I agreed to do it, and it was a very funny script, and Radley is a beautiful director. I mean, he really knows how to make it look good. But when I wasn't on set, after I had done the scene with Claire Wilbur, our big sex scene, because Claire's after me and her husband's after my husband. So I did this scene with Claire Wilbur, and who we hardly exchanged 2 words the whole time. She hated me, because she was the belle of the ball on the off-Broadway show, and the girl that played my part wasn't very attractive. So she got all the attention. And then when I came in to do the film, she was just jealous. And she thought Radley was giving me all the close-ups, and she was just pissed. And so we just totally didn't get along at all. And it was a mess to have to do, this big sex scene with her when we weren't speaking or anything. But the men who were both gay, they actually had sex. So they actually did it. And Radley, of course, shot it. And so many years later, when the new the version that just came out a couple of years ago, so many fans wanted the uncut version that they brought that version out. So now I'm in a porno. After 40 years of being in this business, I'm suddenly in a porno and did nothing pornographic, but But I have to say that the scene between the 2 men is a beautiful scene, and Radley he doesn't just show a penis, he's got like a plant by it, so he dresses it up so it looks, he makes it real artsy. But it's a great film. It's very funny, and I'm proud to be in it, even though it's a porno.
Well, I remember in the director's talk, the commentary in the Crazies, I was telling you yesterday that
Right.
it was either George Romero or somebody brought it up. They said, "Yeah, there's Lynn Lowry. She did these questionable movies.
Right. Right.
Why did she do that? Because she's so good." But I think it's aged well. I think they both aged well. The score is definitely classic.
Right.
So after that whirlwind,
Mm-hmm.
some of the things that happened to Lynn Lowry after that. I mean, you've run the gamut of a lot of different things.
Yeah, I did soap operas in New York. I did a lot of theater, trained, very highly trained theater actress. I really wanted to, do Chekhov and Shakespeare and, all the great, people. And it's always funny when my theater people, ask me about my first feature, and I say, "Oh yeah, I played a mute hippie on acid with rabies," and they're like, they just don't get that, So it's real funny. But then I moved out to California, and it was very difficult in LA. The writers were on strike. I think the directors went on strike after that.
Yeah.
Hard to get an agent. Really just did a couple of TV movies of the week, and then I got Cat People, which was quite a famous scene, which a lot of people know me from that.
Well, you've got to tell that story.
That was such
The stairway, that was so, you had us on the
Difficult.
floor yesterday.
oh my God.
But it was such a funny story. I mean, it's funny to look back, I guess, now. It wasn't funny at the time.
No, I had to. Well, when I auditioned for it, they asked me if I bruised easily.
Not a good sign when you're asked that early on.
But like I said yesterday, if you ask an actor anything, do you know how to fly a helicopter? To get the part, you're going to go, because you're thinking in your head, I'll just go out and learn how to fly the helicopter like really quick and be able to do it. So you always say, no, I don't bruise easily. Yeah, I can fly a helicopter. So I got cast, and I had to do my own stunt work, and they just totally, for like such a big budget film, they were just like all over the place. They after the first day where they put this application on my leg where the cat gets me and scratches me, the next day when I came in, they were putting it on the wrong leg, and I'm thinking, am I wrong? Because I don't want to say something. If they must know, right? They're the like the FX people. They've got to know which leg, So I didn't say anything, and then after about 30 minutes, I finally said, seems like I remember it being on the other leg, And then they go and look at the Polaroids, which they should have done in the first place. And of course I was right, and then they were all pissed off at me because I didn't tell them that, right up front. And then the leg thing, where the cat grabs me, pulls me under the bed. Well, the mechanical cat claw did not work. But I had to fall on my knee like probably 12 times before they finally decided to do away with that and just put a crewman under the bed with a paw on his hand. But my knee's all swollen and bruised and, messed up. And so, they do that, and then I've got to crawl, out of the room and get the door open, and then I have to come down the stairs, like face first, and because the camera's at the bottom of the stairs, and then the camera's going to whip around and come in, for a close-up like that. So I come down the stairs, screaming and crying and all that. They didn't take the tacks out of the carpeting on the stairs, so I got all cut. They had to take me for a tetanus shot. So then I get back. So then I'm coming down the stairs again. They can't get it, and then they can't get me turning over, and then my bra popping open because Paul had to get everybody's tits in the movie. Annette's tits, Natasha's tits. The bra wouldn't pop, so that they had like wires on the bra, and they had strings on the bra, and I'm supposed to turn, and scream, and the bra pops, doesn't pop. So I have to keep going back up to the top of the stairs and come falling down. And it was, I must have done it like over 20 times, before. I don't know how they finally got it to pop, but they finally did. They used the grenade, yeah. And then they called me back 2 days later because they still didn't get it. And I said, I couldn't walk. I was so bruised and stiff and rug burned, and they said, oh no, we just need you to do that close up, Well, I got back there, and they said, we're so sorry, we lied to you. You need to fall down the stairs again. And I said, no, I'm not. I can't. You need to pad me. We need to get the stuntman over here to do something. The stuntman never worked with me. Had no help, and actually somebody told me that the stuntman he liked to work with women that were voluptuous. Again, the Playboy thing. Like, we don't want you. Your tits aren't big enough. He didn't want to work with me because I was skinny and didn't have big tits. So anyway, he had to come over now because I wouldn't do the shot. And so they padded me, and I said, if the padding doesn't work and I have to fall down these friggin' stairs again, I want more money. And so, of course, at that point, this is the last scene in this location. Everybody wants to move to the next location. They're going to lose the light, you know. And there's little me, you know, going, you know, I'm not going to do it. And so they had to renegotiate with me and agreed to pay me the stunt pay, which they should have been doing in the first place. And of course, you know, Paul Schrader was, you know, pissed off, but we finally got it, you know. So that's my Cat People story. I don't regret doing it, but it was a nightmare.
And you've done, you know, you were mentioning your theater work, because, you know, I was stunned at how much theater work you had done that doesn't get talked about much.
Right.
But your acting class,
Oh,
that you were telling me about yesterday, I knew of a couple of people you had that was in that class, but I could not believe the people you got to tell folks. I mean, you crossed paths with some amazing.
James Earl Jones was in my acting class. Diane Keaton, Madeline Kahn, Maud Adams.
And it wasn't Annette
Oh,
O'Toole?
Annette O'Toole was in my class. So.
Some pretty good company.
Yeah.
I would say.
They were good.
I would say. Well, I'm going to jump a little bit.
Okay.
Because I know I want to give folks time to ask you questions as well. But I know you've taken a little time off. You took about 10 years off.
I took 10 years off. Not from stage acting.
But from the film stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I just, you know, I had it. You know, it was just like I could not get work, and I didn't know that I had this fan base for horror. I never pursued anything in the horror field once I went to California, because the casting people, they didn't want to know about I Drink Your Blood. So I hid all that, you know, but the theater that I belonged to, the group, I never told them any of the things I had done on film. And every now and then someone would come up to me and say, you know, you've got like some fans, right? And I'd go, oh yeah, right, you know, whatever, you know. And I mean, I just didn't know. So for 10 years I struggled, tried to get work. Finally, I had this audition for Roseanne, and I thought, you know what? If I get this job, I'm going to keep on. And I went in for this audition, and there were like 100 women there. It was like 5 lines. There were 100 women there. They were like, you know, big women, small women, skinny women, short women, red-headed women, you know, African-American women. I mean, you would think you can't make a decision if you want, like, at least an African-American woman or, you know, a Caucasian.
No, that's pretty common. That happens a lot.
I mean, I was just like unbelievable. And so I thought, oh, I'm not going to get this. Well, I got a call back, and I thought, oh my God, if I get this, I'm going to keep, you know, again. Went back for the call back. Now there's 50 women there that are, you know, African American, you know, blah, blah, blah. I didn't get it. And I just thought, and then I heard somehow that they cast, you know, one of Roseanne's friends, you know, in the part. And I just thought, you know what, I don't want to do that anymore. I'm going to concentrate on theater. I'm going to do my singing. I'm not going to do it. And then like 10 years later, I was sitting in my house, and I thought, because again, a couple of people had said, you know, you have fans. And I was like, yeah, right. So I was sitting in my house, and I said, you know what, I'm going to look my name up on the internet. You know, I barely knew how to use the internet at that point. I just learned how to email people. And so I looked my name up, and there was like I'm counting the pages. I was like 1 through 30, you know, and I went to like page 30, you know, and there's all this stuff on me, and I'm like, what the hell? I was just like amazed. And so I did a website, and I started getting, you know, a convention here or there, and I started realizing that, you know, people knew all this work that, you know, I had done, and then Bob Murawski contacted me, who was the editor of The Hurt Locker, and who was a huge fan of I Drink Your Blood, you know, which I thought was crazy, you know, because again, I didn't think anyone would ever see I Drink Your Blood, and he brought it all back, you know, with the full version, and you know, and then I did The Crazies. I have a 13-minute interview on The Crazies, And then I just started getting more work, and people started hiring me, and I was like, man, I could have been working all that time. And I had no idea. So it was kind of like getting a second chance to come back and have all the training now that I have to do roles that I could not have done before. So it's very exciting.
I was amazed at how accessible. Yeah, we met a few years ago. That you had a Facebook page.
Yes.
And I just on a lark, I said probably you've got someone keeping that Facebook page for you.
No.
Sent you a message, and like within an hour, I'm hearing from Lynn Lowry. I'm going, wait a minute, this never happens. I mean, this, and then we met at Twisted Fears, I guess, when we interviewed you down there. But I just amazed, and now do you have that kind of rapport with a lot of your fans? I mean,
I do.
How do you keep up with it? It seems like
well,
you're getting flooded.
it takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
But I do try to get back, to everyone, and if somebody makes a comment, I try to, comment back and try to keep in touch and let them know I'm there and that I appreciate, their support and what they're saying, and it's great, because I wouldn't get work if it wasn't for all of them, and it still amazes me. This guy who came up to my table yesterday, he was like 6'4", and he came up to my table, and he went, "Miss Lowry," and he said, "Would you sign my I Drink Your Blood poster?" And I was like, "Really?" But I mean, I have to say, I do know why it's a classic, and I do see, its uniqueness and why it's lasted, all these years, But, from my family's point of view, it's like, why would you ever do, anything like that? And he pulled out. I was even telling my mom last night, who I'm staying with over in Duluth. I was telling her about this guy and this huge poster, he pulled out of I Drink Your Blood, and she's just sitting there looking at me like in shock, like, why would anyone ever see that movie, more or less, have a poster 40 years later that they want you to sign, I mean, she loves it that I'm doing it, but she still she can't believe it, either, so.
Let's talk real quickly about, and in case you guys don't know, they're screening The Crazies.
Yes.
Right after
and
this.
my new short, The Peripheral.
And I want you to talk about your new short and Model Hunger a little bit, and some of the stuff you're working on now.
Okay. Well, The Peripheral is J.T. Seaton directed it, and he also directed George's Intervention, that I won a couple of awards for, which is a very funny zombie comedy. Bloody, but funny. So bloody you're laughing. It's just like, it can't get bloodier, and it does. And then you're laughing because it's just so bloody. And he did a short called Divination, which also won a lot of awards. And then this is our last short that he did. And it's really good. And I actually play like a normal person in this, which is unusual for me. And but the end is very intense, and so it's great. It's really well done, and if you see it, I'm sure you'll really like it a lot. And then I have a lot of things coming out, but Model Hunger is my baby, because I get to play a schizophrenic Southern Belle serial killer in it. And so I took all my Tennessee Williams. Since I was 16 years old, I've been working on Blanche Dubois. So I know those characters really well. And so I really took Blanche Dubois and just turned her into a serial killer, who tortures, people and then cooks them and eats them. And so she's charming and Southern and, just, kind of sexy and seductive, and then extremely lethal, but funny. So it's just a great combination, of all these things, and tortured and in pain and, all these, great subtext and everything. And it's going to be released in January. So I highly recommend that if, you like serial killer films.
And visit Lynn's website, because she's got a clip of it up there on
yes.
the website.
What was the name of that movie again?
Model Hunger.
Model Hunger?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's Debbie Rochon's directorial debut. So I got to work with Debbie, and that was great fun. So.
Folks, we've got a few minutes here, and here's your chance now if you want to talk one-on-one with Lynn Lowry. Any questions you might have, please jump in. There, run out. Yeah, go ahead.
What was your experience on the Crazies remake?
That's good.
It was a good experience overall, but I got to Iowa, and I had a 5 a.m. call the next morning, and at like 9 o'clock that night, the assistant director calls me on the phone, and he asks me if they told me I didn't have to prepare anything. I had no lines, just a cameo, just come. I get there, he calls me on the phone at like 9 p.m. and he says, "So Lynn, we're all excited about having you tomorrow. We're going to pick you up at 5 a.m. and you're all set with the hymn, right?" And I said, "What?" He said, "You know the hymn, the church hymn that you're singing in the scene." And I said, "No, I have no hymn. I don't know what you're talking about." So then they're frantic, because I don't know the hymn, and nobody gave this to me, and they've got to come over, they've got to send me the music, and they've got to, send me the CD. Well, we're like this little motel in Iowa, they don't have CD players. Now they've got to find a CD player, and now I'm like up half the night trying to learn this hymn that I have to sing. I'm thinking, it's a $21 million budget. Somebody couldn't tell me, I have to learn this song. And then I get to the set, and they say, "Okay, Lynn, you're all set with the hymn, right?" And I'm thinking, I hope so, Now we need you to go talk to the stunt coordinator. I'm thinking, the stunt coordinator, I hope it's not going to be like cat people, again. Oh, and it's freezing cold. It's freezing, and I've got like thermals on, and I've got this jeans and stuff. And of course, the director, he wants me in a sleeveless cotton dress, and it was freezing. And now the stuntman says, "Here's your bicycle." Like, what? He said, and then he's like all panicky. He's like, "You do know how to ride a bike, right?" And I said, like 40 years ago, I rode a bike, So now for the next 2 hours, I'm like driving down the street, trying to, get the bike down. And one time, I turned, it was so funny, because I was way at the end of the street, and I turned and I fell. And I didn't get hurt, but, as I'm getting up, there was like 20 crewmen racing down the street, towards me, and it was just like, "No, I'm okay. So now they got to push me on the bike up this alley. I've got to be singing this hymn. I've got to hit pools of light where the sun is coming on certain words of the hymn, which I barely know. And I've got to cut around Timothy Oliphant, like practically hitting him. And we did this all day, and they still didn't get it. They had to hold me over, and we had to do the whole thing again, and then they still didn't get it. And then in Los Angeles, I had to go in and do the ADR, which is doing the voice again. And now I've got to do the ADR and try to remember this hymn I learned, 6 months ago, which I didn't even know then. But now I've got to do it like pretending I hit bumps, and it was extremely difficult. So, I got paid really well.
She got fed too.
And I got fed, and everyone, treated me really nice, and they were all like happy to have somebody that was in the original there. But I just kept thinking the whole time, $21 million. It's like, hello, so. And the difference is between that film and George's film. In this film, in the remake, they do like 5 levels of crazy makeup. That's how they portray it. And I'm not saying the actors weren't good, but they had all this makeup. In George's film, George would say to us, "Now Lynn, in this scene, you need to be crazier. You need to act. You need to use your instrument, and you need to act like you're crazier." There was no makeup, there was no prop, there was nothing. It was just, you had to act. And so it was like a family, you cared. It was like we made magic, we created art. It wasn't a job, it was a gift to get to work, with George. The remake, it was a job. Everybody was there just as a job. Nobody really cared, about the art, making it. Nobody thought. I'm sure George didn't think either that 40 years later people would still be watching his movie. But I guarantee you, nobody's going to be watching the remake in 40 years. But I'll bet you in 40 years they'll still be watching George's film.
Yeah, right.
Because it was made with love. So.
Still.
Yes.
Well, folks, I think we're near the end here. I think it's time for the Boris Karloff stuff to start.
Okay.
We have a screening
Yes.
coming up. Please join us in the Madison Room.